All right, Marfoogle TV going live in 3, 2, 1. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam aka Marf, and again, in the last show, we just briefly mentioned about today's show, which is, again, they were saying that there was a national security dispute this morning, that they were going to close airspace for 10 days. And again, some people believe that's because there was a party balloon. Of course, media has put out a narrative. Of course, the White House put out a narrative. The FAA put out a narrative. The locals put out a narrative. And people actually believe the simplest cover story possible, which was a mix-up of over 2 days of news, which is that a party balloon is what potentially was going to close down airspace for 10 days. If that is even remotely true, then think about the balloon that flew over our entire country under the last administration and was allowed to get over all of our military bases, go over our Rust Belt where it could have easily been shut down. And then now think about how they would respond to it under this administration. That's if that was a balloon, right? If it was a party balloon. Mind you, if you watched live this morning and weren't catching the update and looked it up, then you would find that the media is absolutely lying about something here. So again, I think people are behind. I don't think people can see a cover-up when they see one. I honestly think that a lot of people just don't have they can't get past the president, the hate, because they want to tear apart Hegseth. They're going to say, oh, look, he shut down airspace because they shot down a party balloon. Yeah, that's the easiest way to make it look stupid because of one official, and that one official who was also mixing up 2 days of news. If you have military people in your family, if you have a lot of them like we do, then you'd know that this wasn't something that was just as simple. Again, I'll talk about it here in a little bit, but I'm in disbelief. People are actually believing the party balloon outfit, especially with when you see everything that happened this morning. And if anything, it's more believable that there was a dispute between the FAA and the Department of Defense, basically them not telling the FAA what they were doing this morning, and then basically FAA shutting down. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But NATO begins Arctic Sentry mission. Now, this is another one to just really, really think of. And again, this is you've got jets and different units being sent there, and they're all going to be basically sitting in this sub-frozen temperature, or they're going to be flying over it constantly, protecting it. And it's like, we haven't had any public knowledge of any kind of invasion threat from China or Russia. They say this, but now there's enough information on the back end that they are, doing these missions. They're trying to protect Greenland. And before, last year, the year before, nobody even thought about it. So now there's something changing in the background. And mind you, everyone here, most everyone here believes that we are not only close to World War III, that there is a bunch of stuff kicking off right now with Maduro, with Cuba, with Iran, with North Korea, with, of course, China and Taiwan. It said NATO announced Wednesday the launch of a mission called Arctic Sentry to bolster its presence in the Arctic, a move intended to appease the U.S. President Donald Trump following its retraction of the claims on Greenland. The new mission will leverage NATO's strength to protect our territory and ensure the Arctic and high north remain secure, according to a statement from the U.S. General Alexis Grinkovich, NATO's Supreme Allied Commander Europe. It says Arctic Sentry underscores the alliance's commitment to safeguard its members and maintain stability in one of the world's most strategically significant and environmentally challenging areas. Remember, Greenland is between us and Russia, between us and China. This is going to be a very strategic area if there is a world war. It's just funny that people don't realize why it's really, really, really important right now. Mind you, all of these other things are going on right now. Obviously, there's a lot of sensitivity about anything, going on in our country, especially with what ended up happening this morning. Trump says nothing definitive came out of meeting with Netanyahu on Iran. I highly doubt that. Dex, do you want to talk about this? And let's bring in my co/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fugel fam. I'm doing just fine. Yeah, so nothing definitive came of that meeting, which I guess is all they're going to tell us, because I'm imagining that meeting was probably much more secretive about what they needed to share outside of the high level, what they would release publicly, which was that Netanyahu wanted to the expand the negotiations to make sure it covered those ballistic missiles, as they refer to them. So, but Trump said in a post on social media, nothing definitive came out of the meeting with Netanyahu at the White House. He said that he did tell the Israeli leader that he preferred a deal with Iran, but warned that without one, we will just have to see what the outcome will be.
Now, I'll give you my thoughts on this in just a moment. We're going to come back with this and many, many more, including the party balloon. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, so as we have potentially a second armada even being decided upon going into a round surrounding Iran, of course, Israel, Netanyahu comes over, they have a closed-door meeting, and then they say nothing definitive came out of it, basically make everybody think, oh, it was nothing important. That tells me that nothing's going to happen in the next 24 to 48 hours. You're probably going to see in a week or so, there's going to be an event or whatever event that they both decided on, that they're, basically trying to make it look like he didn't just come here and they just straight up decided, let's do this or let's do that. I bet you that is what is going on, because they don't want to point it at Israel. Obviously, Israel and Iran have a very, very, very deep beef. And then we have Russian war losses now exceed recruitment, and of course, it's as Western officials say. Now, I can guarantee Russian, of course, news is probably going to dispute this. Every time you have the Western news versus the Eastern news, you have a dispute over what is true. But of course, Russia sustained around 9,000 more battlefield losses in Ukraine than it was able to replace last month, according to assessments from Western officials, signaling progress for Ukraine's ambition. Now, this makes it sound like they're literally running out of people. Remember, this actually confirms what I've been saying, is they've been grabbing people off the street to fight Ukraine, not using their main force that they would use in a world war against a major power like the U.S. They are trying to recruit. They're losing more people than they're recruiting. Then yes, the number will start going negative. What's crazy is that this was reported for Ukraine like 2 years ago. If you remember, they were losing people left and right. Russia has a better military than Ukraine. That's, of course, why they needed our help, why they needed our man-pads, why they needed our missiles, our jets, our tanks. So, yeah, and then, of course, our storm shadows and our potentially, others. So, yeah, this is a headline that makes you think that Russia's losing right now. They're losing more than they are recruiting. That, if that is true, that could be said for Ukraine 2.5 years ago. So yeah, the number of Russian soldiers killed in action jumped as high as 35,000 in December. So that's really nuts to think about, because this is a massive war if there's that many people perishing. And, people in almost every other country really don't understand how big of a war this is. 35,000 a month. If you look at the numbers for World War II, this is comparable to some of the battles. You're talking about 35,000 people in 1 month perishing. If that's the truth, that's really nuts. That's 35,000 families, decimated. And again, that's on one side. So yeah, pretty insane if you ask me. Now, before we move on, we're going to talk about the fiasco this morning. I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. This is a device that you can get and quickly put into your vehicles, into your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, even quicker. You can put it on your generators. They're plug and play. Again, marfooglenews.com/EMP. Again, they're plug and play, at least for the Energy, Flex Tactical, and others. marfooglenews.com/EMP. Make sure to use the code MARF. This will ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before an EMP or a Carrington level event from the sun can fry your device. That way you're going to be able to drive home from work or go out, to bug out. Not only that, you'll have a generator running. You'll have a house that everything plugged in is actually protected after multiple EMP blasts or a Carrington level event from the sun. marfooglenews.com/EMP, and make sure to use the code MARF. Thank you, Stephen McMahon. The Committee of 300 is an alleged group of the uppermost tier of elite who run everything, are above all national governments. So you made that comment last night, and I asked if that was like the Trilateral Alliance. And that sounds a whole lot like what I was thinking about. That's exactly kind of what I guessed it was, right? The people that are at the very, 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 very top. I don't know, with the population of almost 8 trillion or whatever, I would highly think that number has probably gone up. But back when it was started, I'm sure it was probably only like 300 people that were able to make all the decisions of the planet. And there's a lot of people that don't realize that's less theory and more fact than anything else if you go up to the very top. All right, now.
Yeah. And Adam, grab I just put a link in up next, and it's kind of not what called breaking. It's just more of a recent update that came out in the last couple hours or so.
Oh, weird.
As it relates to the opening subject about the NATO and the Greenland, NATO Arctic Sentry and the Greenland. It's just some strong words coming out of Russia.
Do you want to read what they said?
Yeah,
one of these quotes
exactly.
is pretty big.
So Russian Foreign Ministry Sergei Lavrov said today that Moscow would take sufficient countermeasures, including military action, if Greenland is militarized or used to build capabilities targeting Russia, as NATO announced the new Arctic Sentry mission. This is amid the U.S. pressure to take over the island. So speaking to the State Duma, Lavrov said Greenland was militarized or became home to a military infrastructure directed at Russia. Will take adequate countermeasures, including military technical measures. But look, we already have a base there, and I'm sure that base is already, I don't know if it's not there to necessarily target directly Russia, but it's certainly there to detect, and it plays its whatever role it currently plays. So I don't know what their definition of militarization is, or if this is just big words coming from them again. What are they going to do? Roll up and try to push us out of Greenland? Maybe.
Nobody's thinking about that angle, though. What if this was an offensive thing where they have bases set up, they have troops, they have all of this because of its placement as well? Think about, everybody's talking about missile detection and missile, interception, which again, we can't intercept missiles from there. We can only detect and monitor them. So they don't have nukes that are going to launch off of Greenland. They don't have silos there. So just to show you again, here's Greenland, and the whole time they kind of show you where what's claimed about Greenland, and then they always show you Russia's response. So Russia's basically seeing this as like, hey, they might be using this to push in and to use during a future war. That's what I kind of see Lavrov kind of thinking with this, like, hey, they could use this and weaponize this against us. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, as far as this, I have some strong thoughts about what happened with the El Paso airport and with the FAA. If you actually look at what was going on this morning, so there were unusual NOTAMs, there were all of these things, and again, people said, oh, look it up, it's a balloon. And no offense, but I think that's really, really short-sighted. To think that this was all over a party balloon, you weren't watching this morning as everything was going on. There was absolute chaos. There is a more explainable, less crazy theory about this that would be logical, which is that they were testing, and they were testing. So there's multiple different angles. We'll show you. They said it was in response to U.S. military testing. And then one official said that they were shooting down a party balloon. This is absolutely nuts how they word things. And of course, if the other side media gets a hold of this, and again, there are sides that are going to say, hey, he punched some guy in the face. They're going to say he decimated the gentleman. He almost murdered him. If there was a slap contest, right? Again, El Paso Airport grounding was in response to U.S. military testing. Military testing, which was taking place near Fort Bliss, was of a high-energy laser that are designed to protect against drones from drug cartels that could cross over the U.S. border. Now, this morning, everybody was saying that the cartel was sending drones over and that they were knocking them out of the sky with something. They ended up saying that they were going to close the airspace for 10 days. They said you will be shot down if you're flying in this area. Now, there were many theories this morning. Dex, do you want to go over one of the theories this morning that you saw was that there potentially could be surface-to-air missiles that they found, and they didn't know how many there were, so they were going to indefinitely close it down for 10 days. That changed. Do you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I mean that's just a theory. Like when you have no explanation, that's the crazy part. Was they came out with this and they gave no explanation other than security and other than that they would take down potentially, question, escort, or even shoot down any planes that were violating this 10-mile space around the airport there. It begged the question, like, okay, what's on the ground? Like, was there some sort of threat? Did they uncover a cell that they think may have multiple locations and had something they could use to take down jets as part of can you imagine those are pretty low to the ground when they're landing, especially by an airport.
And there's 3 other airports within reason of this. So why would they only shut down El Paso for 10 days? Again, it was just El Paso for 10 days. And then they resolved the issue. Hey, grab the PR team. Let's think about what we could call this. Oh, and then somebody makes a comment about a party balloon. And then when everybody reads that, their confirmation bias, they're like, oh, these guys are idiots. This whole thing was out of a party balloon. There was something massive going on this morning, and people really believe the cover story. Like, 2 weeks to stop the spread, and if you wear something, you'll be protected. If you get this, you won't spread it. Like, they told us a lot of stuff, and you believed it, and believed it over and over and over again. And then you read the headlines, and then people were almost like cocky about it. Like, did you Google it? It says on CNN and on MSNBC that it was a party balloon. Nobody believes that. You're in a empty room with nobody else that believes this. Just like, EpiPen killed himself. It's like everybody over time is just going, okay, yeah, this doesn't make sense. This entire thing doesn't make sense. Now, remember the false missile alert? Remember how they covered that one up? They said, they pushed a wrong button. Well, when people like myself immediately said, what do you mean? If there's just like a Staples button, like an easy button that goes, hey, send everybody a message that there's a nuclear missile coming. Click. No. And then what did we find out days later? Oh, it wasn't a button. He couldn't just push a button and do this, alert to everybody. What was it? Oh, it was a drop-down menu with a very, very clear warning. And then another drop-down where you had to select which one. And then you had to select what kind and to who. And he did all of these things on accident by hitting the wrong button. And people believed it. Right when after that happened, I remember the same comments. People going, did you Google it? The guy pushed the wrong button. That's all it was. How do people believe this stuff? Sometimes I believe that people are skipping steps. They don't, they're just not, they're not paying attention to what's happening here. With this and everything that's going on with Maduro, with all of these countries, the same countries, if they were here every day, the people that have been here every day, they know that we've been following this, and all of these countries were picked as potential attackers, and that they were all teaming up to do this attack. Well, isn't it funny that now every one of these countries is involved in crazy chaos and crazy, a conflict? And the media and the internet is able to tell us that all of it is separate. All of it is a coincidence. That all of it is just, a complete and utter coincidence. Meanwhile, I have even people like my daughter talking about, she has been watching all the TikTok videos about, ICE and about all this. nobody really questions beyond their dislike for our president why he would make such a unpopular decision to put ICE in to grab all these people, other than that he's racist. You have all these millions and millions of people that we all know, we can all agree that 20, 30, 40 million people came in during this time period. Do you think that all of those people were good people? Hell, I bet you could say, oh no, they were all people looking for a better life. But then again, ask any one of these people, hey, will you take in a couple families into your home? They'll say no. And will they trust them around their no. And when you see the people that did come in and the people that came in and there was evidence, actual evidence of them coming straight through, not going through the facilities, not going through the whole process, and then going to a separate facility from a certain country, it's like people still don't get this. That's what I don't understand about this whole thing, is people are thinking, this is Texas, it's on the border. This was near Fort Bliss. They said they were going to shoot down anything in the sky, and that's because they saw a balloon? That's quite a different response than, say, JB. Dex, go ahead.
Well, and let's get this straight. The effect went in the early morning. Who's got party balloons up in the early morning?
Remember, it takes about an hour and a half for any big party balloon to go all the way to space. And that's like the first 20 minutes, it's out of sight. It's the first 10 minutes, it's out of sight. Again, this wasn't a freaking party balloon. I'm sorry. And then is there any video evidence of the party balloon? No. It's just this comment by one dude. But yet the overwhelming evidence of what happened here was something massive. Now, Dex, there was a more logical explanation of, and I kind of said it, but you definitely could say it better from the one angle of this.
If they do admit there was this testing that was going on. So the theories right now range from there was potential drone activity that was concerned. I've heard people talk about lights over the airport that was a concern. But the one thing that has been admitted was the Air Force, or the military installation, I think it was Fort Bliss, was doing, or they say they were doing, laser testing and testing of lasers into the sky at that were designed to be defensive against drones that come across from Mexico. And in doing so, there was potentially this argument between the FAA and the DoD as to whether or not they needed to close the airspace. And the FAA wasn't getting the answers that they liked from the DoD as to, was their testing going to interfere with commercial traffic or not. And so they said, well, you know what, since we can't get a straight answer, we're just going to close it, and then you guys figure it out. And so they closed it. And then, of course, DOW figures it out and tells them what they need to tell them, and then they open it. And that again is coming from inside sources talking about the argument between the two of them. So take it with a grain of salt. That might not be true either, but it's plausible. Certainly plausible. And
military members said that this balloon party was part of the laser testing, but it was 2 days ago. It says and they don't say exactly when. It didn't say this morning. It says the military did recently shoot down a small party balloon. A small party balloon. Okay, I could understand that for targeting. So think about this. They just say it like that, so then it leaves it open. Oh, they saw a party balloon, and what people think is of the balloon that went across our country that's massive. They're saying it's a small, like, happy birthday balloon, and that they shut the airspace for 10 days because of that. BS. Like, really? And by the way, this is somebody who was watching this all morning with military members messaging me about this and saying, hey, my buddy says it's this says it's this. And none of the things sounded crazy. It sounded like that there was some sort of security threat this morning, and they're covering it up with either testing or this, which is what they do on every single one of these. They said they did recently shoot down a small party balloon, two of the sources said. Yeah, that's totally reasonable. If they're targeting drones, they're going to use party balloons and then have the lasers shoot them. Do you shut down airspace for 10 days because of it? That's bull, okay? But it does make sense, like if they were trying to be tight-lipped about it, not tell the FAA, and the FAA is like, you got to tell us exactly what you're doing if we're going to close airspace. Okay, well, we'll close it for 10 days. They could be smartasses like that. But what does not make sense is that this was all over this. And then the NOTAMs, a lot of these people saying the balloons, they didn't see a lot of these NOTAMs and the strange, we will shoot you down if you're in the sky. Like, what? What? Like, none of this made sense. It just did not make any sense. And that's why I just don't understand when people just believe the first thing they see of something, and if it makes sense to them, and it harkens that confirmation bias or the dislike towards an administration, they just go with it. I don't mind if you hate the president or absolutely love him. Don't let that affect your judgment on other things. The president wasn't sitting there pushing the button. The president wasn't in Texas. The president wasn't this. But everybody just brings him into everything. Either that or they bring Hegseth because Hegseth is his right-hand man. It's like their hate for the administration clouds their judgment. And I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. All right. So I think just like, and with many other things, there's a lot of people here that are going, hey, this does not seem right. And over time, what has happened when there's a lot of people that go, this doesn't seem right? And the first initial people are like, no, they said it was this. What ends up happening is over time, everybody ends up finding out. And then the people that initially were like, this is weird, they are vindicated. But by then, it's slow dripped out until everybody's like, yeah, well, of course, everybody knows. That was a laser test and cartel sent 3 drones over. But again, in the very beginning, people, make nasty comments and everything else when everything should be questioned, especially if you're here. That's what I don't understand. If you're here, question everything. Don't just believe the first thing you see. It's imperative right now that we all have discernment. And discernment, it requires questioning absolutely everything. And then Anthropic safety researcher quits after another Anthropic, I think it was Anthropic, another one just quit. They're quitting left and right. They're saying that this is so unsafe that the world is in peril. Dex, you're better at describing AI and things like this. Why do you think that they're all quitting?
Well, look, this is an important one because Anthropic's got one of the most powerful tools out there for coding, and it's probably not an AI that most of you have used. If you've used AI, you probably just play with ChatGPT or Grok, the more common, consumer-facing type AIs. This is a very powerful one, and they've originally the CEO Dario Amodei said they had the explicit goal of creating a safe AI, but he even said at Davos that AI progress is going too fast, and he called for regulation to force the industry leaders to slow down. But Mir Anak Sharma, who said that the safety team, I guess he quit. He's like, and his exact quote was, "The world is in peril." So he's out. He's like, I'm not doing this. Citing concerns about bioterrorism and other risks. He said they're constantly facing pressures to set aside what matters most. So yeah, that's kind of a scary thought when safety is causing these security guys that are there to, overlook this and protect things. They're walking out. So makes you wonder how bad it really is. And mind you, what they release to the public and what they have in their research labs are dramatically different. Like they have probably done things that would, scare a lot of people. And they know not to release that.
We're not talking about raising eyebrows. We're talking about shearing them off or burning them off or melting them off.
Yeah. So, and that's what they see. And I think that's got to be eye-opening when you're in the lab, when you're behind the scenes and you're seeing what these massive data centers are being able to produce. Even if it's an R&D or development test and it's not something that they're rolling out publicly, that's pretty scary.
Anthropic was founded with the explicit goal of creating safe AI. Its CEO, Dario Amodei, said at Davos, this was just a couple weeks ago, that AI progress is going too fast and called for regulation to force industry leaders to slow down. This is the company saying it's going too fast. And they're quoting bioterrorism in one of the main things here. Remember, you've got countries like Canada freaking buying up freaking hazmats supposedly, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? Again, which brings me, it's funny because the next article on this was talking about there's 2 articles down that talks about Trump is saying that he's going to block a new bridge. This isn't in the regular news tonight, but vows to block the opening of a new bridge to Canada. Remember, they just did a huge strategic partnership. And to the people watching in Canada, I love you, and I don't know how you are still finding me. But again, Canada has made some bad decisions too. There's a lot of people that are not happy with their government. There's even the talk over the last couple of weeks of Alberta, seceding from the rest of Canada. That's how mad some people are. At the same time, you've got the rest of the people saying, "Oh yeah, we don't want those racist Albertans here anymore. Let them secede." At the same time, they are working very closely with China. And if you look past all of the left versus right, and you go to the very top to the capitalist billionaires versus the communist billionaires, both evil, then you start to understand what the hell's going on here. That who's lining up with China, who's lining up with the U.S. And when you see what they're doing, it makes a whole lot more sense than this BS illogical, like just hatred to hate, nonsensical, just I don't like that person because he's on that side. I mean, we're not playing dodgeball. We're trying to, have humanity survive. But again, now they're blocking potential bridges to Canada. I didn't know that. And then OpenAI engineer calls for AI existential threat days after Anthropic safety lead. Dex, he also, the AI engineer, OpenAI, ended up jumping in here.
Yeah, so this guy, he works at OpenAI, which is the company that makes ChatGPT. So he is an AI engineer, Wei Fam, I'm sure I'm butchering his name, sorry, or Wei Fam. Has now publicly admitted that he feels the existential threat posed by artificial intelligence, adding that its disruptive impact on jobs, society, and human relevance is a matter of when, not if. He's currently a member of the technical staff at OpenAI. He previously worked at XAI, Augment Code, and even Google Brain. Google Brain is the subgroup that does all the AI work for Google Gemini, as they call the public product that you probably have seen in your Chrome up in the corner. He took to X to share his unease at the pace and the direction of AI development. He goes, "Today, I quote, I finally feel the existential threat that AI is posing. When AI becomes overly good and disrupts everything, what will be left for humans to do? And that's when, not if." So, more backlash coming from, the people that are inside and seeing what's actually happening in the development labs at these large AI companies.
So what just happened behind closed doors that all of these guys are like, whoa, this is getting too crazy? What is happening? And in the same couple day period, Musk all of a sudden says, hey, we're going to the moon instead of Mars, and we're going to open up a self-growing city on the moon. Nobody's putting 2 and 2 together. Like, what if they literally get on to the moon and, what if they're literally afraid of AI going nuts and launching missiles all over the world? And that would be something that, would not affect the moon. You would still have the moon be a safe space, right? I'm just throwing that out there, and that's more of a crazier thought. But what if they literally are like, hey, we need like a backup on the moon in case something goes wrong with this AI? What happened? Did an AI just try to access nuclear technology, or in a test, did they try to nuke the world? Are they going to tell us? And this is just a soft prediction here. What if we find out in 6 months from now, when everything's going crazy, what if we find out that they just all saw under these, closed door experiments that AI tried to nuke the world, or tried to access a hypothetical simulation of the nukes and destroy us because we were the problem on the planet? It sounds like it's sci-fi, but look at what happens in the same couple days. He goes, forget Mars. We're going to start a self-growing city on the moon. Just yesterday. Like, what? Out of nowhere, just, and not throwing away the other things, saying this will be able to be done quicker. Let's do it now. Something is off, man. I'm telling you, what is it? My radar. No, that's literally a word. I was trying to, a play on the other dar, but it's my weirdar. It's just, you guys come up with something in chat. It's the hairs on your neck stand up when something weird is going on. Like when they said, oh yeah, all the cameras were off and he was taken out in his suicide watch cell, Okay, sure. And then Blob Jones, thank you for the support. Thank you for the mustache. I appreciate that. And then thank you, Stephen McMahon, again. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the top fans again so far. Spectre, let's see here. Joplin Mike, Marion Gray, Tiffany Hartman. Actually, quite a few newer names. Ray Batty, Melinda Arns, Tom McQueenie, Engineer to Succeed, Rosemary Wood, of course, Colleen, Dr. Hoover, and of course, Daniel Phillips. Wiz Jen, I don't know if you're in there somewhere. Past James, Chance Paladin, See Here Think, Nat Tate, and so many more. Thank you, and thank you. All right. And we're going to talk about somebody mentioned the shooting in Canada. Again, now it is somewhat breaking, but there was an event. A suspect in Canada shooting is identified as an 18-year-old with a history of police visits to her home. Mind you, in the U.S., there's not that much being talked about with this. Again, there were 8 people. I think, what was it? I think the number has changed, right? Police initially said 9 people perished on Tuesday. This was a supposed female, 18-year history of police visits to her home. Check on mental health, authorities said Wednesday, a day after the attack that killed 8 people in a remote part of British Columbia. So we haven't heard much of this in the U.S., or at least it hasn't hit the main cycle. It's on AP, it's on all of the news, but it's not being talked about compared to the whole list of other things. So again, I just wanted to make sure to talk about that. But again, in the U.S., we have so many of these going on right now. It's like this is almost daily for us. And then we have, of course, we're going to talk about the Russian airlines, and we're going to talk about that whole fiasco. But first, I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go check out marfooglenews.com/prep. You do not need a code for this one. Again, I just got another email, how do we get a discount and credit us? You don't have to do anything. If you go to marfooglenews.com/prep, it not only gives us an affiliate credit, it gives you a huge discount on certain packages. Usually it is rotating out of the 1-month package or the 3-month package. Now that sounds like a lot, but it's actually insanely priced. So it is bulk freeze-dried food, which again can be preserved up to 25 years. It's all self-contained into Mylar bags and then into buckets. And then you can store them very, very easily. It saves a whole lot of space. And then when you want to eat them, or you need to eat them, or have to eat them, again, you can just open them up, either cook in water or add water or cook in sauce, and it will bring it back to life. Freeze-dried is one of the best ways to preserve food because it basically preserves much of the actual minerals and the stuff that's inside of it, and much of the flavor, again, without sacrificing much else. Other than, again, it is going to be a huge space saver. marfooglenews.com/prep. Again, marfooglenews.com/prep. Make sure to go check out. They also have the Alexa Pure water purification system. This is comparable to the 1 or 2 names that everybody knows. It does everything they do, and I think better and faster. And again, it is at a quadrant of the price. So again, make sure to go check that out. marfooglenews.com/prep. And then we have, of course, Russian airlines suspend flights to Cuba, begin evacuation of citizens. So, Dex, now they're actually evacuating Cuba of Russian citizens, which is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of odd here because they were supposed to be assisting them and making sure that Cuba was good. So much so that they're like, hey, let's get all of our people out of there. I wonder if this is also kind of like what happens with Iran when everybody's evacuating. Is something potentially going to go down in Cuba? Could they take a small force and just switch out the government there after the embargo?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. And remember, this is also the same Russia that tried to put up to 100,000 people into Cuba, or Cuba said, hey, 100,000 Russians can come in under tourist.
200,000.
Oh, 200,000. Sorry.
Crazy,
more.
Right?
Twice as many. So are they all there? Are they trying to get them out? What's going on? But yeah, the lack of jet fuel, no fuel's going into the country. So unless if you're flying in, like I think Air Canada was saying, hey, we're not going there anymore. But they were going to fly in with extra fuel on board. You can't land the plane with a full tank, so they have to measure out the right amounts, but they leave a little extra on board so they can take off and maybe make it into America and then have a pit stop and refuel. A Russian flight, that's a long flight. And yeah, they're probably not going to be able to come in with enough fuel to get back out. So they're not flying in anymore, and they're trying to get their people out as quickly as possible.
So just to absorb what's been happening in just the last month, we have Venezuela now regime changed or regime transitioning. And then you have Cuba, which is on the edge of essentially dissolving. I mean, they can only go so long. So we're going to follow it as it happens, but really think about it. What is happening right now? You have Iran on the edge of a regime change or giving up everything that makes Iran crazy Iran. And then, of course, you have Cuba, longtime Cuba, now about to drop to its knees. Like, all of this is happening in a month and a half. There's some crazy, crazy headlines happening. So, yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Some great, great, great folks in chat. Thank you. Ryan, thank you, says, buy a beer, old mate. Well, I haven't actually drank. I've only drank 3 times in the last 12 years. 4 times, maybe 5 if you count one of the 4th of July's or weddings. But again, I will buy a coffee. Again, I've also tried to stop coffee as well, and Diet Coke. Diet Coke is deadly. And then Blob Jones, thank you. I appreciate that. Zadesia, Marfdar. That's exactly, my Marfdar is going off. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to stick. Unfortunately, I just said it out loud, so it's probably a meme and it will stick. Okay. And Ryan, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you all. And then thank you, Dex. Thank you so much for all your service tonight. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
All right, you guys, have a wonderful night. Make sure to thank the mods by going over to marfooglenews.com. Not only do you have a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document, but you also have the Friends tab. When you go there, you can click and you can get to Chance Paladin's books over on Amazon and go support a local author. You can, of course, go to Wages World and support an awesome creator that's covering all of the solar events. You can go to Trinity and dive down some deep, dark rabbit holes. You can, of course, go to ILEA and laugh. And you can go to Lisa R. Hall and just subscribe and say you're cool. All right? So make sure to go check them out. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. Rip Curl as well, and everybody else. Jammer, Bobby Sue, thank you, and much love. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It is now time for the shout-outro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout-out. It's a shout-outro.